Welcome to the All In Podcast. We are joined here by Kevin. We have a lot of news to cover in the League of Legends esports scene. First thing, though, is we are going to be doing a rebranding. So we are the All In Podcast now. We're going to be changing names to the Run It Down Podcast. Primary reasons are there is already a pretty big podcast named the All In Podcast, and we knew that going back, but we're trying something new. So let us know what you think about the new name, the Run It Down, our new branding. We're going to be experimenting with a couple things. It's not going to be perfect, so hopefully you stick with us. Kevin, how you doing? Thoughts on the rebrand real quick, and then let's get into some news.
Yeah, I think very transparently, like this is something that I've been trying to push for a long time. No one's been blocking. It's just more like inertia happened, and we were just like, well, we have had the name, and then 6 years passed, and here we are. I think we want to make sure people can find it. We'll be experimenting around, and like I think this is a good name, whether or not it can be found or not. See, but yeah, I think full transparency wise, like we know that corporate companies also do rebrands all the time. We want to make sure we still stay genuine to what we've been about. You know, we've been about esports takes that are both like understandable but also deep. So I think we'll still continue that. None of the content will change in that sense, but yeah, just bear with us.
Yeah. Well said. You know what? Just for fun, just to put it on the record, some other ideas we had for podcast names. If any of our listeners have an opinions on these and like them more or less, please let us know in the comments. We had the Smartcast. That was a pretty good one. The Quickcast, also a pretty good one. I think the problem with those is too generic of names. Stuff like that already exists out there, like smartcasting your phone to your TV, right? Yeah. And then also really liked Zonia's Happy Hour or Zonia's Power Hour. It's like very, very lead coded. But it's a little, doesn't actually sound like it's a podcast, maybe, not sure. I don't know. I don't mind Zonia's Happy Hour.
It sounds like a segment almost. Yeah. Not a podcast, if that makes sense.
True. So we could do like a Zonia's Happy Hour. I don't even know what it would be. It would be like, there'd be like a segment of us like going over like a single play and like freeze framing a play and like breaking it down or something. Yeah. So
plenty of ideas, open to opinions as well. If you guys have things you like, or if any of the ones we mentioned you're like, screw the SEO, will overwhelm it, maybe we'll go with that. But yeah, I think for now we'll give this a shot.
Yep, we're gonna be the Run It Down Podcast. If I say it enough times, maybe you guys we'll like it more. All right. So first order of news is, of course, the main characters of League of Legends. It's T1 news. It's Gumayusi. So in our last episode, we talked about how Gumayusi left T1. And now new news has come out that T1 will be taking Peyz and adding them to their roster. So another former teammate of Chovy, an amazing AD carry in Peyz. What are your thoughts on Peyz coming to T1?
Yeah, I think if they had to find a replacement, I think Peyz is a good one. He's the one who famously replaced Ruler, and Genji continued to be dominant after Ruler left for JDG or just left for China in general. So I think this is like a pretty good move. And when I initially heard it, I was like, okay, like if they, assuming they, Guma wanted to leave or something like that, then this is like the best option they have, right? Kind of like when they picked Doran, but I think it's actually better in terms of like the gap between Doran and Zeus versus the gap between Guma and Peyz. So I'm pretty happy with it, but I believe you have more news to share on this.
Yeah, I mean, so Keria wanted Peyz, right? That's something that came out. Keria sounds like specifically chose Peyz, and I think another interesting thing that's tied to that news piece is T1 knew no matter what, if they won Worlds, if Guma got Finals MVP, whatever, yada yada, that Guma was out this year, right? And I think that is fascinating because
that's wild to me. Like the worst case scenario for I guess the management's look is that they win World Finals, he gets MVP, and then they just not even bench him, they just kick him.
Yeah, they kick him from the roster. So a lot of speculation we had in the last episode, right? Is it like Guma wanted to leave and then T1 didn't try hard enough to keep him, or was it like T1 wanted to kick Guma no matter what? And we find out it's Guma was leaving no matter what, is according to the news source, and that there's a world where Guma could have tried to stay, which I think is crazy. That T1 would go for this choice. And I think it's also directly tied to a brand new piece of news that came out within the last hour of us recording. It is Wednesday night, 7:42 p.m. Pacific time. This news piece came out just an hour ago. It's a South Korean politician from the Democratic Party in Korea, is publicly speaking out about the cyberbullying happening from T1 Gal. So T1 Gal, if you guys aren't aware, is this T1 fan club, but they're not really a fan club. They are an incredibly toxic group of cyberbullying crazy people that just bully mostly Gumayusi, and I think they're responsible for the trucking incidents. So if Gumayusi or someone on T1 performs poorly in the regular season, T1 Gal will buy a truck, put neon bright lights on the truck in the form of words to tell them to bench Gumayusi or something crazy, right? These guys are actually crazy. And yeah, a South Korean politician comes out and condemns T1 Gal, demands that the Korean Esports Association, KESPA, and Riot Games Korea and all that stuff, each club, they can no longer be bystanders. You gotta step forward and take responsible action. Insanity that this is happening on this kind of level. Give me some of your thoughts.
I mean, I think to give a little bit more context, this is already insane to think about that it's gotten to this level. I think for cultural context, South Korea is it's basically the homeland of esports. This is where it was basically born, where it became huge. There is old-fashioned Dune tournaments, but StarCraft 1 was the first professional major scene. It was in Korea. They had it on multiple TV channels. There were multiple leagues as well. So I think with that in mind and how prevalent esports is over there, I think you can really understand the culture around gaming, the culture around internet. And cyberbullying is not just a problem in esports, it's also a problem just on the internet in general, right? So with them so dialed in, I think it just makes sense that they're speaking to it, and it's using a popular organization like T1 to really highlight, or I guess in this case low light, the problem is very important, right? They want to make sure people understand hey, this is something you can relate to, right? Even if it hasn't happened to you, this is Faker's story. Everyone knows who Faker is. Legitimately, everyone in Korea knows who Faker is, which is unthinkable, right? For if everyone knew who Double F was here. So all that to say is I think it's a very good thing that they're speaking out. But I also think it goes to show how big of an issue this is. It's not just sometimes you see a problem on Reddit, they're let's boycott Pokemon because something happened, right? And then it sells the most it's ever sold. No, I think this is legitimately an issue. It's not just Reddit.
Yeah, I do think it's a huge issue. That's why this South Korean politician is speaking out. And it's good that you give context behind the culture and how long it's been a thing, right? Because of how long esports has been a part of Korean culture. The fact that it's taken this long to get this kind of exposure, and the fact that it's still not fixed, or it feels for me at least, in my perspective, that this problem is just getting bigger year after year, actually. The trucking was kind of funny a couple years ago, but now it's just terrifying, right? Guma's family's getting death threats. Guma's getting death threats. Tons and tons of esports players get death threats. I remember when I Will Dominate, who is, a notorious T1 sort of hate watcher, his family was getting death threats from these T1 Gal people, these other, craving, raving, ridiculous esports.
Is it still T1 Gal if they're also giving him? Because isn't T1 Gal generally more anti-T1? Or I guess they're so T1 that they do anti-things.
Yeah, it's uncertain, right? It's probably just T1 fans and then T1 Gal fans. There's a thin line. It's a thin line. It's hard to really differentiate.
I mean, the etymology of it is also pretty on point. So do you know where the word fan comes from?
Let's hear it.
So fan comes from the word fanatic. Like you're
Yeah.
a fanatic over something. That's why you're called a fan. So people who are going really crazy about being a fan of something literally are fanatical. It's also where the esports org fanatic comes from, but
Yeah.
spelled differently. So in a true sense, they are being true fans. But being a fan is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, they're being a fan in the literal sense. I think the socially accepted way of being a fan of a team, though, is like, you know, you watch the games, you watch the sport, you cheer the people on, you criticize them when they do bad, but you keep it about in game, right? You say,
Yep.
hey, Gumayusi is bad at Ezreal. Gumayusi is really good at Varus. And you criticize him like that, but you don't start sending death threats. You don't start commenting on who they are as a person and, you know, their behavior outside of the game and outside of the sport. And I think that's where the internet and social media has just gotten ridiculous over these things, where too many people have a voice and express that voice in just the most awful way.
Yeah. People are like, I think they misunderstood the point of freedom of speech sometimes. Is not, no one has the freedom to make death threats. I hope people know that. Freedom of speech doesn't actually work that way.
Yeah. No, if the government and the police had infinite resources and time, everybody who made a death threat is breaking the law. That is grounds for prosecution and getting charged.
Being anonymous should not protect you from, like, making a death threat is just unthinkable. Like, what? There's no like need. It's not like you don't survive unless you flame them to that extent, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not okay to make death threats. So I mean, the whole T1 situation, it's always just, you know, there's always so much to talk about every year with T1. I think this era that we're talking about with T1 is some of the most insane things that have ever happened in esports. I do think getting an actual politician to speak out about cyberbullying for a League of Legends player is just crazy. That's some crazy visibility for the game, for the teams and the players.
Agreed.
Yeah, so let's continue this AD carry conversation, right? So you mentioned that the gap between, let's say, Doran and Zeus is not nearly as big as the gap between Peyz and Gumayusi, and I tend to agree. I do think that, right, Peyz is absolutely amazing player. He's fantastic. His only real downside, right, is that he's got that Chovy ruler-esque sort of problem where he's the best AD carry 99% of the year, or tied with the best AD carry with like Ruler or Viper or something. It's just at Worlds he never shows up, right? He's made it to Worlds a couple of times, mostly on the Gen G roster, can't get past semifinals or something like that, right? Maybe even out in quarters. I want to talk about those AD carries that can get it done though, right? So in a previous podcast, we talked about, is Gumayusi the GOAT of AD carry? And we kept getting cut off. A couple technical issues here again, but we're here to talk about it again.
It's T1 Gal.
So is Gumayusi the GOAT of AD carry? I think most commonly the GOAT of AD carry is going to go to names like Uzi, names like Ruler, right? And so let's just go over the reasons why. Why would Ruler be considered the GOAT AD carry, and why would he not be considered the GOAT AD carry?
So Ruler would be considered the GOAT AD carry because he's probably the closest, like the most complete AD carry in history. He's won Worlds, although I would argue 2017 doesn't count the same way as anything 2018 and onward, because the game became more internationally competitive after 2017. 2018 onward, China and Europe, and occasionally NA, MSI finals,
Yeah, throw us in there.
became competitive, right? So I think as a result, that's why he wouldn't be counted. But he is the most complete. He doesn't necessarily have the hands like Guma does, but he's very close, right? He's like 95% of the way there. He plays almost every style well, and he's like meta-proof as well. But why he wouldn't be considered is like, he actually, as you you foreshadowed, is like kind of has been choking for a while. He's had very powerful rosters around him, and he just can't get it done.
Yep, he can't get it done at Worlds. It's it's almost always losing to T1 or some other team that ends up making it to finals, right? I think this year, Ruler's performance against KT was quite disappointing. It was something that is not talked about as much because Chovy had the most flashy looking griefing, the most flashy looking choking, where Chovy's just getting solo killed by himself on the Oriana. It's very obvious to point a finger at Chogi and be like, yeah, that's choking, man. There's no excuse. That's just ridiculous. But Ruler is more of a quiet choker, right? I think this year on Genji, he was a non-factor in a lot of his games. He was getting himself kind of killed a lot, right? I remember in game 1 on the Corki, he really didn't have to die to BDD's Yone, and it's insane that game turned around in KT1. And I think in game 4, right, I think BDD was playing Cassiopeia, and Ruler is just walking up to a Cassiopeia with ulti, just getting ulted in the face and dying, right? I think it happened in 2 fights in that game 4 versus KT versus Genji at Worlds 2025 in the semis. So, yeah, and then Ruler in the past, right, I remember his time when he was on Genji again in 2022, Genji ended up falling to DRX, who ended up winning 2022 Worlds. I remember there was times where Ruler was playing, I think, Ezreal, and Zeka was playing Akali on DRX. And there was 2 fights I remember, this was also in a game 4, where Ruler just walks up to Akali, and Zeka just ults him, and full combos him, and Ruler has Flash and E, but it's like, you already walked up to the Akali, and she got her ulti off, right? I remember that actually happened twice in that game 4 against DRX, and Ruler kind of felt like he lost that game for his team. So, yeah, that's a deep cut. That's a couple years old history, but I remember it distinctly. But then let's talk about why is Ruler so good though, right? Because he's the best AD carry 99% of the year, right? Sometimes Peyz is in that conversation when he's on Genji, right? Especially in 2024, Peyz was just a monster. And Ruler was stuck on JDG Hell where his team wasn't so good, right? But on JDG 2023, he was insane. He's meta-proof, like you said, but he's also team-proof, right? I think that's an insane thing that Ruler has. Is every year it feels like he has a new support. Every year he has a new team he's playing around, right? He has so much variety in his teammates, and he still manages to be top tier. He still manages to win domestically, to win MSI or something like that with a brand new support almost every year. He is a fantastic AD carry.
He's a fantastic AD carry for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, those are the final. Those are most of the things that would qualify or disqualify Ruler for the GOAT AD carry status. And then we got Uzi, right? So Uzi is the original candidate for GOAT AD carry, and he obviously deserved it for years and years. But I think in that new era that you're mentioning, right, post 2018, when internationally the world just finally caught up to Korea for a little while. Uzi was the de facto GOAT AD carry. So what are some pros and cons? What are some reasons he is the GOAT AD carry and some reasons he might not be?
So the reason why he would be the GOAT is because Uzi had the largest gap maybe ever in history between him and the next best person. Especially between him and the average person. I would say that Piglet was really good when they were all competing against each other, right?
Don't let Dom hear that.
What'd you say?
Don't let Dom hear that.
For that 1 year. And then Imp was really good. Def was really amazing too. But when only Uzi would be 100 CS up on Fnatic Pushu, on just some random Western AD carry who's top in their league, just comes up and just gets absolutely gapped. And the things he would do were just something that it defined the role. He defined the idea of protect AD carry. We all knew it was a concept, right? And generally, but the way I think a whole generation of top Chinese AD carries came out of this. And I bet not just Chinese AD carries, probably other regions AD carries also learned from this, and they were like, hey, I want to play the role that everyone's protecting, everyone's setting up, and I can be the hero, right? I think that he defined that, and he also had the results. He got to 2 finals, won an MSI, almost did the I always get it wrong. It's not Royal Road in this game. What is it
Golden
called?
Road.
Golden Road. Yeah, Jesus, I'll never remember this. I've done this take 4 times in my life, and I always forget. Golden Road. He was also an initiator. He was a team leader. His style shaped everything he did. And Faker said that he was the best player of his region of all time.
Yeah. If Faker himself tells you that he's the best player in China of all time, you gotta listen.
Yeah, I also mentioned before, but Doublelift also said when Doublelift was asked in recent content to list all the 80 carries, and if any of these are better than him at his prime versus their prime, he should speak up. And he didn't for Guma, for Bang, for Ruler, for Viper. No, he was quiet. And then when it got to talking about Mr. Uzi, he was like, I mean, of course Uzi's better than me in my prime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the respect that guy's earned, it's not a coincidence. He's truly the highest gap there's ever been. But at the same time, he never did win it, right? He didn't win it all. He won everything but that. And he was so close, but he kind of started to fall off by the time China started being competitive, right? So he kind of held it down and gave us hope all the way up until the point where it actually happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it did feel like Uzi's drop-off was defined by the rise of the LPL, actually. He fell off at the time when LPL won Worlds, right? It was that 2018
Just
Worlds.
Really ironic.
Yeah. Everyone thought he was going to win it all at 2018. I remember the teaser. Holy badass. He walks through the door. It's fucking Uzi.
Oh my god, it's Uzi, yeah.
That's a legendary teaser. And his fall in that Worlds was career defining for G2 in perks. It launched him into the stratosphere. That was one of the most insane upsets to ever happen in League of Legends. It was G2 versus RNG. And that year is when IG won. No one expected that. And I do think it's you're talking about this old style versus new style. 2017 to 2018 was just a massive change to the game itself, right? The patch, the balance. We moved away from Ardent Sensor meta. AD carry is the most important role. Support is the second most important role because they gotta buy the Ardent Sensor. Moving to 2018, Riot releases the most insane solo lane champions, right? With Silas and Akali and Aurelia and Aatrox, right? And I think Urgot was really big back then too, where you give so much, you make so many powerful solo laners and you move the game away from support the AD carry. Uzi really didn't fit into that new world. And now we look at the world today and it's, AD carry is a lot less powerful as a role than it used to be back then. Because when it was, Uzi was the guy.
Yep, absolutely. I would have loved to see him at his prime when it all came together, but either way, I mean, he also famously, he isn't always the best teammate. He did have potential. There's always been rumors, whether or not it's true or not, we don't know. But he also didn't necessarily get along with all his teammates, and he was, especially when he was younger, very stubborn and very strong-willed. Yeah. I mean, he was very good too. So
yeah, it makes sense for a competitive young guy at the top of his game. Everybody's going to be strong-willed, emotional, and he was not an exception to that rule. I think other things that we talked about all the pros of Uzi, right? So I'll list one more thing, right? As Uzi had presence in the game, right? Since we're an LCS podcast, usually we think back to Doublelift. That's our GOAT, right? The NA GOAT, and in the big world. And being the NA GOAT doesn't mean that much, but to us, it's a big deal. And to the region, it was massive. Doublelift being the NA GOAT and the best AD carry of the region, what would often happen is the gap between him and the next AD carry was so massive, not just in skill, but in mentality. I remember there were so many AD carries that would play great most of the time. I think the biggest victim is Cody-san here. But because Doublelift was their idol, they all grew up wanting to be like Doublelift and play like him, that when they actually got to the LCS and had to lane against Doublelift in a professional match, they dropped the ball. They shit their pants. They started choking like crazy. And I remember, right, it was when Cody-san joined 100 Thieves. This was also 2018 when LCS went through franchising. Cody Sun gave an interview where he was like, I became a pro player because of Doublelift. He's my favorite #1 player, and I can't wait to play against him. And Doublelift just like trash talked the hell out of him. Classic Doublelift. And then 100 Thieves would go to play Doublelift, and Cody Sun would just lose his mind. He would not be able to lane. He would get solo killed and burn his flash and stuff like that. And I think that kind of presence that Doublelift had on his local region, Uzi had that presence onto Doublelift. There's so many instances.
Yeah, I agree. Ironically, but yeah.
Yeah, so many instances of international scenarios where I remember it's like, wow, Doublelift started playing really bad against Uzi. He's kind of pooping his pants. And Uzi did this to everybody. Uzi made everybody quake in their boots. They could not perform to the level that they could show. They couldn't perform at their correct level, right? They would drop down to the sheer pressure that Uzi brought to the Rift. And that is something that's insane, right? That's only something like the only players that really have that these days is someone like Faker, right? People feared Uzi so much that they couldn't even perform. That's a big pro. But what's the big con, right? The big con is Uzi hasn't done anything for a long time. He hasn't been in the scene that much. He did come back in I think in 2017 or not 2017, 2022.
It's the year that he was sharing time with Doggo on BLG, right?
Yeah, it was
before. It was after 2017 for sure.
Yeah, it was after 20. It was like 2022 or 2021 or something like that. He was sharing time domestically, and he actually just barely didn't make it to Worlds. Would have been insane to make it Worlds the first time he came out of retirement, but of course retired again. Yeah, Uzi in this new world, in this new age of League of Legends, where the game is so much harder and all the players are so much better, Uzi hasn't done anything. So I do think that time period where he hasn't been around, it takes away a lot from his GOAT candidacy. Now, is he one of the most respected legends of the game? Yes, he will always be. When we're talking about the GOAT AD carry conversation, though, the present is a very big deal, right? The present is the hardest time to win. 2025 is much harder to win Worlds and win domestically than it was in 2018, 2017, right? And that's where we wrap all the conversation back to Gumayusi and why he is in the conversation to be the GOAT AD carry. I think we mentioned it before, but it's always fun to reiterate. This is a very Guma-centered episode. He gets it done now. He gets it done today, right? If it's Worlds in the past 3 to 4 years, right? Even though he lost in 2022 to DRX, it was not Gumayusi's fault, right? Gumayusi was doing everything to keep his team in the game in 2022. So you go from 2022 all the way to 2025, 4 Worlds finals in a row. 3 of them, the trophies, were actually earned by Gumayusi, and then finally getting the finals MVP and being the most important player in the 5-game finals this year in 2025. Gumayusi is the guy when it comes to get it done at Worlds. He is the guy that you want under pressure, right? More than Ruler, more than Uzi. When the pressure is on, Gumayusi is the AD carry you want, right? And his problem, though, of course, is he's got a smaller champion pool than all the other AD carries are mentioning, right? He can't play as real as Zeri. He just started playing Kai'Sa. After his entire career, he just started being good at Kai'Sa. And he's only done it on one team, right? Uzi and Ruler, they have this thing where they did it with multiple teams and multiple players and supports, but Guma's only done it with the GOAT AD carry, right? And he doesn't do it all year long. I think you have some points here in this area about why maybe Guma doesn't deserve to be the GOAT AD carry.
I think first of all, I will say that while you are right about the timeline thing and how important that is for the conversation, I would say at the end of the day, they aren't we're all a product of our era, right? We don't necessarily just say, okay, because Michael Jordan would lose to a modern player who's learned all the sports science and the preparation and the moves from Jordan and other greats, that they're better than Jordan. Because if you just do that, then it's then you're just saying the greatest of right now, right? Like, because players are, in most games, in most sports, people just get better and better as time passes. Because they learn, they understand the training techniques, the tactics, the rotations. All like there's shit that like bronze Lee Sins do now that like was diamond back then. In terms of what they do on the map, in terms of the mechanic, in terms of insect kick is the most obvious example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really don't think that being worse than this current player precludes you from being the best of all time. That doesn't fly with me, because it's not who peaked the highest, right? It's who in my opinion, it's like who embodied greatness at that time.
Yeah, well, it's talking about that gap thing, though. I think that point I was trying to make is talking about the gap thing, right? So the gap between Uzi and the next best player was really massive, and that's a plus for Uzi, right? But what's a plus for the modern AD carriers like Ruler and Gumayusi is that the gap between them and the next best AD carry is not that big, but they're still getting it done, right? Their competition is so much stronger that they're still able to get it done. It is more impressive to me. The fact that Gumayusi is able to be the best AD carry at Worlds when he's against all these other AD carries that are absolutely insane and incredibly talented, that is what I think is very special.
That is true. I think that's a good argument for why he's in the conversation, why he's a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, as you kind of alluded to, like the fact that he just can't win any other time of the year though, and hasn't won since like 2021 or 2 for a single LCK it's just like, I can't in good faith say you're the best of all time when you can't beat the other people for most of the year. And yes, you do win when it matters. I totally give credit to that. But for most of the year, if you're losing, that's a problem. And also, you're sitting next to the GOAT support. So if you're the GOAT AD carry and the GOAT support, I think simply put, if you can't win most of the time, at least, I'm not saying 100% of the year, no one's done it. I'm saying like a majority of the year. If you can't do that, who's not the GOAT here, right? There's got to be a problem here. And this is like a large sample size.
Yeah, and it is really up to what you value as a person, right? So you look at Ruler, he's got this huge rap sheet, this huge list of accomplishments, MSI, domestic. And, I don't even know if you can count Ruler's domestic titles. There's so many domestic titles that Ruler has, right? Just absolute peak performance, day after day, all year long. But then you look at Guma's, and his accomplishments are a much smaller list. They just mean so much more, right? Lost to Ruler at MSI, lost to Ruler in finals of LCK, lost to Ruler finals of LCK again, right? Lost to Ruler in a random domestic match, but he wins Worlds 3 times in a row. Smaller list, be more impactful. And it is up to what you really value. And I guess we've kind of concluded that like there really isn't a GOAT AD carry that exists now, right? That there's no player that embodies GOAT status enough, because it's none of the AD carries that are at the top of the table, right? They don't have enough to actually just sit down and call you the GOAT, like, right? It's hard to say any one of these players is truly actually better than the others in terms of the GOAT candidacy.
Yeah. The throne is open and they're fighting over. Also, you gotta give credit. Ruler has been better, like better for a long time. Sorry, he's been very good for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. He's been good since 2016. It's a very long time.
Oh my gosh, it's actually been that long, my lord.
Yeah, in 2016, I think his first or second year playing ever, he went to finals against SKT, against Faker himself, brought him to 5 games. I mean, Ruler was the original BDD, right? The original KT, where, holy cow, this random 3rd seed is making it to finals against the SKT and almost winning and taking him to game 5. To come back and win it the next year, 3-0 in 2017. I mean, that Samsung Galaxy roster that stayed together 2016, 2017 is not talked about enough, and how legendary that run was, right? That is like that to start Ruler's career like that is insane, and to continue his career like this, I do believe that. So the rumor we're going back to present, right? We're fast forwarding. The rumor right now is Gumayusi is going to Hanwha Life. And the rumor is that Gen.G is retaining their roster. Canyon is staying, Ruler is probably staying, which means Chovy is probably staying, and Keen and all these guys, right? So Guma to Hanwha Life, Peyz to T1, Ruler stays on Gen.G. I do think that if we have this conversation in a year from now and Guma wins Worlds, I might just have to give it to him because he did it on 2 different rosters. 4 Worlds titles in a row. But if Ruler wins Worlds and he finally gets it done with Chovy on Gen.G and he wins his 2nd title, I don't know. That's going to be so convincing for me, especially if Gen.G has the same performance. Like, what if Gen.G Golden Roads next year, right? I really might just switch on over to Ruler and be like, okay, I mean, you've been getting like, you've literally been this close to Golden Roading like 3 or 4 times in your life. And then you actually do it? Okay, yeah, you're my GOAT. You're my GOAT, Ruler.
So I totally agree with the Guma comment, by the way. I think if he can do it on a different roster, that's enough. He's like, he's basically my biggest hang-up is like carry as the GOAT for support. So if you like, it just like one of you has to be the problem if you guys keep losing throughout most of the year. I can't be both the GOAT and also not able to win just a regular season once in 3-4 years, right? But if Ruler wins, I don't think he's the GOAT.
Oh.
I would say, just like you were saying, like Ruler sort of like hasn't, made it count when it mattered. I think the same for Chovy. I think the same for him as well. And why I think that is, if you think about it, he's on some disgusting rosters. JDG on paper was an insane roster. The year that they lost in semis, that roster was a super team. Faker has not had anywhere close to that kind of roster most of the time when he wins. Like ZOFGK is only considered as good as it is because, personally, I think it's because Carrier and Faker have made it look good. But for most of the year, they were like 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place. Like they weren't 1st seed for a very long period of time, right? So like, those aren't, by definition, that's not a super team. No? These are just teams of very good players who make it count when like they're playoff. We call them risers. Like they just step up to the plate when it matters, right? But that's not a super team. If you're just the worst most of the year, that means you're clutch. It doesn't make you a super team.
Yeah.
So if he wins, it definitely puts him back in the conversation and like puts him ahead of the race. I don't think so, man. Ruler's had some insane rosters for years. He's had Chovy. Chovy's by far and away the best player, and it's actually like a super good comparison point. Remember when Chovy finally won MSI?
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
and he finally won MSI. Great, love that for him. Like I'm genuinely think he deserved it. I'm happy for him, but at the end of the day, I was like about fucking time. Like, with the rosters you had, the amount of runs you made, could you not win once? So to me, it's kind of the same feeling. If you are such a good player for that long, 7 or 8 years of runs, Worlds is different, but the quality of rosters at a level where Faker gets so many points because his roster quality was worse. Period. Objectively, demonstrably, all the numbers speak to it being worse for so much longer. So you being able to carry a win makes you the GOAT.
So what you're saying is, if next year, let's say Gen.G Golden Roads, or gets very close to it, like I don't even think about first stand anymore, or I don't know if I ever thought about first stand. But let's say
anymore.
Gen.G, right? Well, they do the thing they do every year. They win MSI. They win all their domestic splits. They almost go undefeated, or they do actually go undefeated. And if Ruler actually does that and then win Worlds next year, you're not putting him in the GOAT. You're not putting him as the GOAT.
If he gets that close to Golden Road, he could be the GOAT. I'm saying just winning.
That's what
Worlds.
I was asking. Yeah.
Oh, well, because it was just, you just said win Worlds, right? I didn't think it was like an insane year.
I'm just saying, like, right? Like, if Ruler does the same thing he does every year, but just win Worlds at the end of it, right? To me, that would be like, yes, it took you a while, but you finally did it, and now we can say you're the best, right? Okay. I think it's the same with Chovy as well. It's like, I'm not gonna say he's ever gonna outperform Faker. He's never going to be better than Faker in most people's minds. But if Chovy finally gets it done, as in he does the same thing he does every year, which is win everything, but then he finally wins Worlds, for Chovy, I will just say you are the best mid laner of today. And because he has had that title for a bit, but it's never felt real because he chokes at Worlds. But if he finally doesn't choke at Worlds, I will just say, yeah, for the time period, you're just the best player in the world, man. You get to be. But he doesn't win Worlds, so I do think Ruler, for me, if he finally gets it done next year, I'm gonna put him up. And next year's gonna be a big deal, right, for AD carry conversation.
Yes,
because Guma's leaving, and then let's look at the. There's two sides of this coin we're talking about, Ruler and Guma, right? There's the third side of the coin, and that is Viper, right? Viper is this guy who I think everybody knows could be just the best AD carry ever, but he just can't find a roster that gets it done with him, right? We look at that. We look at this year. Viper Life Esports, we look at the performance of his mid laner and his jungler. Peanut and Zeka are just really not performing that well this year. And Viper is just absolutely insane, pumping out crazy damage. Man, it sucks, right? Viper could be one of those guys that's like, move the butterfly here and there, he gets a slightly better team. He's just the best player in the fucking world. Viper is insane, but he's never going to be in the conversation of the GOAT because it is crazy how big of a difference your teammates are going to make for you.
Yeah, especially for his role. His role just cannot solo carry.
Mm-hmm.
Not in Modern League.
Mm-hmm. Not when your support is like an engage one trick, right? Like Delight really can't play like Bard and Poppy and stuff and Nico. Delight can literally only play like Rakan, Leona, and Nautilus and stuff like that. And I think his mid laner and jungler for Viper were just really underperforming this year. Zeus is just new to the team and doesn't really fit with Viper's playstyle. I really do feel like Viper won on EDG that one year, right? And he went to 5 games against DRX when DRX won. Like, this Viper guy is so good, but it feels like we can't give him any props because he's unlucky. Like, there's just kind of no way around it.
Ironically, unlucky.
Yeah, it just feels like genuinely he's just unlucky and he can't win because of it.
Actually, so crazy that's even like considered a valid consideration, right? It sounds like we're like hoping, or it sounds like we're making excuses for him, but like truly, could anyone in good faith say that he's not like generationally unlucky? You could say, okay, I do think you could say he's bad at picking his teams.
Maybe, yeah, true. I think that's a fair Ruler chooses the teams that he does get on, and then he wins MSI, and then he wins all the domestic stuff. That is a real talent that Ruler has.
You have to make demands. If you're just like, and to be fair, he has. Like, there's been rumors that the way he left EDG the first time was like, oh no, that's Scout. It's not even him. No, he's just unlucky. No, that was Scout who forced his way out of EDG early when he shouldn't have been allowed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Scout went on to actually make it to Worlds to LNG over ADG, so it was a good choice in that moment for Scout, and then things have not been going well for him lately. But yeah, I think it's crazy Scout's a world championship. I feel like that one EDG roster, the only players that people actually remember winning is Viper from that EDG roster. And I guess
Scout was a stud during that Worlds, but yes, it is crazy looking back because he's flopped so hard since then. Yeah, I had another good year, I think, after that, and that's about it.
Yeah, I just think it's funny that the conversation really doesn't remember that EDG roster that much, even though their run was very impressive. They were 5-game series against tons of really good teams back then. It
was like a whole gauntlet of stacked rosters. It was like the original T1 came out of nowhere, not T1, DRX run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that Worlds that Viper won was very impressive. It's just not remembered as much these days, even though I feel like it should. Yeah, those are the carries. And let's talk finally. I think let's close out this conversation So we're getting to 45 minutes into this podcast.
Lord.
Peyz. How do we think he's gonna do, man? Like, we already said this on the last episode, but let's just talk about it again. It's so fun. What the hell do we do if T1 wins Worlds again, but with freaking Doran in Peyz? Is Faker just taking all of Chovy's ex-teammates and winning with them?
Yeah, I love this meme. This is my favorite narrative. If they can get it done, like Faker is actually not just the GOAT. He's the GOAT for like the sequel game. He's like the Riot MMO launches. They're like, who's the GOAT of the Riot MMO? It's like Faker because he's Faker, dude. Like, you start getting points for games you don't play at that point.
Faker is transcendental. Like, I don't even know what. I think what were we talking about last podcast, right? We were saying we were robbed of the magic of seeing Gumayusi stay on T1 and win 4 in a row, right? We were robbed of seeing that core just do unthinkable, unspeakable things and carving like a memory in our minds for the rest of our lives. Yeah. I think this will carve a new memory, a new feeling that like we already experienced it with Doran, where it's like you took a player who's clearly worse than Zeus and you still got it done. Can you take a player like Peyz and Doran and still get it done? Like, then it's just indescribable. Like, the feeling of hypeness that I have of thinking of, like, I've never cared about Peyz that much. I've always thought he's great, but I've never cared about him. If T1 actually makes me care about Peyz, because it made me care about Doran, right? I never cared about Doran either, besides the memes. But T1's gonna make me care about Peyz, and then they win Worlds with him. Like, everything we insult with T1, they deserve, right? T1 makes a lot of bad choices and mistakes, but T1 and Faker doing this, if they do it with Peyz, oh my god, I don't even know. Like, it's just amazing, right? This is why League of Legends as an esport is just so fun to watch. It's just addicting. Just can't stop watching it year after year.
It's just, I totally agree on that. I also think that one thing you have to know is like, yeah, skillable wise, like Peyz and Ruler and Guma aren't that different, right? They're relatively in the same tier, maybe a tier and a half apart at most, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that's even more impressive about the Doran is he's a perennial choker. He's the guy who they were like, you know, this guy always fails when it matters. You know, this guy can't get it done. And so Faker was like, it's like the immovable object versus like whatever.
Yeah, unstoppable force.
Unstoppable force, like, well, the unstoppable force is probably tactical, but like, yeah, the point is like, I really think that that's another level impressive. Like at that point, you know what we do? We tell Chovy to switch to jungle, and we're like, all right, bro, let's do
Chovy
it.
Top lane. Yep, replace Doran. Like it just means that. Right, you're saying about the quality of your teammates. Ruler has these high quality teammates all the time. He's always on these super teams. Chovy is always on these super teams with these high quality teammates. Faker can win worlds with literally anybody. You could put you and me on his team and we would somehow find a way to win worlds with Faker.
Take our Clash team together, you know, at this point, Faker. We just have to like run every simulation we can run, possibly.
It's crazy, right? Like the things that Faker is capable of. Yeah. I mean, so we'll just have to see. We'll just have to find out, right? Like, what are we gonna do if Faker wins it again with Peyz? I don't know.
And like,
make him the president.
Like Chovy's kid will like be born, and it will still get fathered by Faker.
Oh my god. Yeah, I cannot imagine. I don't know, man. Like, what does Chovy got to do to win a Worlds, bro? They need a psychologist. That Gen G roster needs a psych team or something.
I think they just need nameplates have to be off. We have to play a format that is double elim, and then we also need to play a format where you can't see the enemy team's name or their faces. They're like, this is just a random game. You don't know who your opponent is, and it's all about pure skill. Whoever's the best hands wins.
You just gotta, you gotta tell Chovy, hey, you're just in the LCK arena. You're not at Worlds, and then he'll just.
No, you gotta touch. Well, no, because even then, when it's in Korea, it's the LCK arena, but it's Worlds. And you have to tell them this is a scrim match. We're just testing out the equipment, and then have it on broadcast. And when they're like, "Wow, this scrim is a best of 5. Interesting."
Oh man, this year especially, I just wanted Genji to win. You know, it just feels like such a big blue ball to have your best team never win the whole thing.
KT went to game 5 too. Like, what are we like? This is insane. How close it was. Like, they were just like so close. AL almost won. Like, so many things almost happened, and it doesn't matter. It's just inevitable.
T1 wins, Genji loses, Joey chokes. It is inevitable. Okay, on that note, thank you for listening, everybody. We are the Run It Down podcast now. We're going to try it out for a bit. We'll see how it feels. Watch out for our shorts. Watch out for our episodes on YouTube. We're just starting things back up. You know, we're just two guys trying to make it work. So, thanks for listening. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.